Today we are going to look at theoretical probability. And experimental probability and theoretical probability are pretty much the same thing. The difference is, in the experimental one, they came up with experiments and they used those results from the experiment to come up with probability. Here, we don't have the experiment. We're just saying, well, what happens if we toss 3 fair quarters in the air and see how they land? What's the probability that they'll all land on heads? And so the difference is that we're not actually conducting the experiment. But the probability is solved the same way. Probability is the number of ways an event can occur. And so what I've called this in the past is a success. And so we want the event to actually happen, and that is a success. That number, the event that occurs, is the number that goes on top, the total number of times it occurs. The total number of equally likely outcomes is on the bottom. So I've always called this the total. The total outcomes are just totals. So successes over total is what we're looking for. So let's take a look at the problems here. We're supposed to write your answer in fraction, decimal, and percent form. So there'll be a little bit of work involved with these problems once we find the probability. So it talks about tossing 3 fair coins in the air. We've got to come up with a way of representing that. And so let's do this. Let's go ahead and make a little chart. So we've got, let's say we toss a coin and we get a head and a head and a head. That would be 3 fair coins. So there you tossed them in the air, and those are the results we got. Well, what's another way we could do this? Well, we could have a head, and a tail. That's another way we could do it. And so we're just listing all the different possibilities. We also have a head, a tail, and a head. That would be another possibility. And then now we've had all the heads occur twice. We could also see, well, one more here. Let's say we put the tail here, and then a head and a head. So here is the 4 different possibilities where you have heads occurring at least 2 times, so 3 or 2 times. Now we'll do the tails that way. So could have a tail and a head. We could end up having a tail, a head, and a tail. And then we also have 2 tails in the beginning we could do, and then the head, and then the last one. What's the last one? Well, that's one if you have all tails. So these are the different outcomes. Let's count how many we have. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the 8 is the total. So the probability of flipping the coin and getting head, head, and head each of the 3 times, would be 1 possibility. So 1 possibility one success out of 8 different tries. And so that would be our probability, 1/8. So there's the fraction form. Now we just need to change that to a decimal. So all you're going to do is just do the division. So we do top dog in the doghouse. 8 into 1 goes 0 times. So we add that decimal point. 8 goes into 10 1 time. So that makes 2 left over. Add a 0, bring it down. 8 into 20 goes 2 times. Makes 16. Remainder of 4. Add another 0. Bring it down. 8 into 40 goes 5 times. So the decimal point goes straight up. So there's the decimal form. It is 0.125, or 125 thousandths is the way we read that. Now to change it to a percent, we're just taking that decimal point and moving it over 2 spaces. So there it is, 12.5%. So we'll write that one down. Well, let's take a look at the next problem. Randomly choosing a classical CD from a collection of CDs. Okay, so we've got a collection. So what we want is the probability of a classical one. And so what we want as a success is picking a classical one. A success is the event occurring. So let's count how many classical ones there are, and then the other number as well. So we see that we have consisting of 35 jazz CDs. Well, that's not a classical, but we've got that's part of the total. So we'll put 35 as part of the total, plus 20 classical CDs. Okay, that's the success, 20 classical successes. And then we also have to add the number of classical CDs to our total. 25 rock, so we're adding that to our total. And what else is there? 5 country. All right, so there it is. So all we have to do now is add up those numbers in the denominator, and when we do that, we end up with 85. So 20 over 85. Well, don't finish up there and say that's your answer, because you need to reduce that fraction. Take out that common factor. So 5 goes into each of these terms. Do that division. And now we've got 4 left over on top. And do the division of 5 into 85. and that goes in there 17 times. So there it is, 4/17. That is the probability of selecting a classical CD. Well, we're not done yet. We still need to do the division. So we need to do top dog in the doghouse. So 17 into 4. Doesn't go in there, so we have to add the decimal point and add the 0 there. And so we end up with 2. Goes into 42 times, makes 34. Do the subtraction, bring down the 0. And we got 60 now. 17 into 60 goes 3 times. And that gives us 51. And we're left with 9 left over. Bring up the 0. And bring it back down. And then we go 17 into 90 goes, we have 5 times. And that ends up being 85. So we'll just stop right there. So we'll say that it's a 0 and 235 thousandths, because I think they say round to the nearest tenth of a percent. So we'll leave it there, because when we have this, we've got 0.235, and I know the next number is going to be small because it's a 5 left over, so it's got to be smaller than 4, or 4 or smaller. So we move that decimal over 2 spaces, changes it to 23.5%. So there it is, 23.5%. Well, take a look at the next one. Randomly choosing a card with an even number from a shuffled deck of 52 cards. Well, in the deck of cards, there's 13 card suits. They're either diamonds, hearts, or clubs, or spades. Each has 9 numbered cards labeled 2 through 10. So let's write down those numbers. There are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So those are the different numbers we have. We count up the even ones. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 even ones. So we have 5 even out of how many total in each suit? 13. 5 out of 13 in each suit. And then from there, we've got 5 out of 13 in the suit. And we'll go ahead and just leave that as our answer. And the reason is that if we went ahead and multiplied this out, we would end up coming back to this number. But let's go ahead and do that. Let's say, because there's 4 suits, so let's multiply this number by 4, and we end up with 20, and again 4 over here because there's 4 suits total, and that ends up being 20 over, and then we end up with 52. But you'll see that we'll end up reducing it right back to the 5/13 because there's that common factor of 4. And so we can just leave our answer as 5 over 13. We want to know the decimal form of that. And when we do that, we can end up getting a 0.385 when we do that division. And when we go ahead and move that decimal point over, it goes over 2 spaces, so 38.5%. So the key is just to count up the number of successes over the total number of outcomes. But instead of, when I multiplied out to find out the total number of even ones, it was 20 over 52, I was able to reduce it again because I had that common factor of 4. Well, randomly drawing a vowel from a bag of 100 Scrabble tiles that has 12 E's, 9 I's, 8 O's, 4 U's, and 2 Y's. Okay, they're counting Y as a vowel here. So we just have to add up the successes. So the successes, we have a total of 12 plus 9 plus 8 plus 4 plus 2. Those are the different successes that we have. And over the total number, well, the total, they told us, was 100 because they have 100 Scrabble tiles. And so all we have to do is figure out what that number is. And so we go ahead and add that value. And when we do that, we have a 12 plus 9 plus 8 plus 4 plus 2 ends up giving me 35 altogether. The nice thing about this problem is that they have 100 as the denominator, so it'll be easy to change it to a decimal form. And so if we go ahead and do that, it's just 0.35, we know that. And we know that the percent form is 35%. Just need to find out that reduced fraction. And so the way we do that is we just take out that common factor. Divide by 5 here, divide by 5 here, we'd have our answer. So when I do that division, we're left here with a 7 over 20. So there it is. We got 7 over 20. That is the fraction form. 0 and 35 hundredths, the decimal form, and 35% for the percentage. Part 2 will have more problems, so check that out.